What if the kindest thing you ever did for someone was also the thing that taught them to disrespect you? Not because you were weak, not because you were foolish, but because you kept forgiving what should never have been repeated. Friedrich Nietzsche understood something about forgiveness that most people are not ready to hear. He understood that endless tolerance is not a virtue. Sometimes it is a slow surrender of dignity. And there are acts, specific, recognizable acts, that do not deserve your forgiveness. They deserve your distance. And point 5, that is the one that almost everyone tolerates in silence, but it is the one that slowly, quietly destroys your sense of who you are. Stay until we reach it. Imagine for a moment that you are a kind person. You give your time when others need it. You stay calm when they are not. You forgive again and again because you believe that people can change, and because walking away feels more painful than staying. But somewhere along the way, something began to shift. The same person you helped at their lowest point started speaking to you differently, dismissively, as if your patience had become proof of your weakness, as if your forgiveness had become permission. You started to wonder if you had done something wrong, if you had been too available, too understanding, too easy to hurt without consequence. And the confusion was not anger. It was quieter than that. It was the slow, nauseating realization that your kindness had been mistaken for something it was not. And if this has ever happened to you, you are not naive. You have just discovered a truth that Nietzsche understood more than a century ago, and it is uncomfortable. Friedrich Nietzsche was not a philosopher of comfort. He was a philosopher of honesty, and honesty, as he knew, is often the most unwelcome gift. Nietzsche believed in what he called the will to power, not the desire to control others, but the drive to define, assert, and protect your own value. He argued that a life without self-defined limits is not a life of virtue, it is a life of slow erosion. He saw with precise clarity that when kind people endure repeated disrespect without response, they do not demonstrate strength. They demonstrate an absence of self-legislation. They allow others to write the rules of their own existence. Modern psychology confirms exactly this. Research in boundary psychology shows that when a person repeatedly accepts boundary violations without consequence, the violating behavior not only continues, it escalates. Because silence to a person who disrespects reads as approval. Here is what most people misunderstand about forgiveness. They believe forgiveness is about the other person, that it's an act of moral superiority, a sign of emotional evolution. But Nietzsche's philosophy reveals a darker possibility. Sometimes forgiveness is not wisdom. It is avoidance wearing the mask of virtue. Psychologically, what happens is this. The brain is wired to seek resolution with the least conflict possible. Forgiving feels easier in the short term than confronting the truth of what happened. And so you forgive, not because you have processed the wound, but because processing it would require you to change something. Your brain does something fascinating here. It reframes the repeated hurt as your tolerance, as your spiritual maturity. And in doing so, it slowly disconnects you from your own sense of what you deserve. Remember what I said about point 5. We're almost there. It's not about whether you are capable of forgiving. It's about what your forgiveness costs you every single time. 1. Deliberate humiliation in front of others. There is a difference between someone making a mistake with your feelings and someone choosing to diminish you where witnesses can see. Nietzsche called deliberate humiliation an act of contempt disguised as conversation. It is not an accident, it is a demonstration. When someone mocks you publicly, dismisses you in a group, or uses your vulnerability for entertainment, they are not being careless. They are sending a message about how they see your worth. And forgiving it without consequence doesn't teach them empathy. It teaches them that your dignity has no defenders, not even you. 2. Betrayal of a confidence you trusted them with. You told them something private, something real, something that only surfaces when you trust someone enough to be seen. And they used it, not as a weapon necessarily, just as conversation, a story they told others without thinking twice. Nietzsche's philosophy of loyalty is precise. A person who cannot protect what you share with them in private cannot be trusted with anything you value. Because loyalty is not silence under pressure. Loyalty is silence by choice. When this happens once with acknowledgement and genuine remorse, it may deserve understanding. When it happens again, it deserves distance. Not anger, not explanation, distance. 3. Kindness that disappears the moment you need it. You were there for them, in the dark hours, in the moments no one else stayed. But when your own difficulty arrived, so did their absence. The calls became shorter, the availability shrank, the warmth cooled into a polite distance. Nietzsche described what he called the morality of weakness, a pattern where certain people draw deeply from the well of others' compassion while offering nothing in return during drought. Modern psychology calls this an asymmetrical relationship. One person carries the emotional load of both. The other simply receives and disappears when the balance shifts. You are not a resource. You are a person. And the difference matters. 4. Repeated boundary violations after clear communication. You told them, not with silence, not with hints, you told them directly, calmly, clearly what you needed, what you would not accept. And they nodded, and they continued anyway. Nietzsche believed that a person's self-defined limits are their personal laws. Without them, someone else writes your rules for you. When a person ignores your stated boundary once, it may be oversight. When they ignore it repeatedly after you have spoken, it is a decision. They have decided that what you need matters less than what they want. And that decision tells you everything. They invade your space. They dismiss your words. They choose their comfort over your dignity. Forgiving this without consequence doesn't make you gracious. It makes you a boundary without a wall. 5. The slow rewriting of your reality. And here it is, point 5. The one that almost no one sees clearly because it happens too slowly. This is not a single act, it is a pattern. It is the person who, over time, begins to make you question what actually happened. Who says, you were too sensitive when you name your hurt. Who says, that never happened when you recall a moment clearly. Who frames your legitimate emotions as instability and their own dismissiveness as patience. Nietzsche wrote with devastating clarity about truth as courage. He believed that the person who distorts reality for their own convenience commits an act of contempt against the one they distort it for. Modern psychology calls this gaslighting, but Nietzsche named it first in different language as the coward's strategy against the honest soul. Your reality is not negotiable. Your memory is not theirs to edit.
6. Loyalty that only exists when it benefits them.
You have seen this person stand with you when standing with you cost them nothing, when it even benefited them. But the moment your defense required something from them, a sacrifice, a difficult conversation, a risk, they stepped back, quietly, without announcement. Nietzsche understood that betrayal without consequence trains the betrayer to repeat the act, not out of malice, but out of the simple human pattern of learning. What goes unpunished continues. What continues escalates. Conditional loyalty is not loyalty. It is strategy with a warmer name. And recognizing it is not bitterness. It is clarity. There was once someone, and perhaps you know a version of this person, or perhaps you were them, who gave everything they had to a friendship that had quietly become one-directional. They showed up every time, without calculation. But one day, something small happened, a moment where they needed to be shown up for, and the other person simply did not come. No crisis, no emergency on the other side, just a choice, the choice to not be there. And the person sat with that silence for a long time, not with anger, with a strange, still clarity. And then something became clear. They had not been building a friendship, they had been building a habit in someone else, the habit of being given to without cost. And that was the moment everything changed. Not loudly, not with confrontation, simply with the quiet decision to stop feeding a dynamic that was slowly starving them. So what do you actually do with all of this? Here is what I call the dignity threshold, not a rule imposed from outside, a standard you set from within. 1. See the pattern, not the moment. A single act may be error, a repeated act is character. Stop analyzing individual incidents, start seeing the full pattern. Not confrontation, recognition. 2. Withdraw investment quietly. You do not owe anyone an announcement of your decision to protect yourself. Distance does not require a speech, not explanation, distance. 3. Stop justifying your standards. Your dignity is non-negotiable. Stop justifying, start protecting. 4. Let silence be your answer. When someone violates your dignity and waits for your reaction, your silence is not weakness. Your silence is wisdom. 5. Choose who deserves your investment. Not everyone who enters your life deserves equal access to your time, energy, and loyalty. Do not downplay your worth to make them comfortable. But there is one more thing, the lesson beneath all the other lessons. If you want to move beyond simply understanding this, if you want to actually live differently because of it, then here is what Nietzsche considered the highest form of strength. He did not believe the goal was to become harder, to become colder, to build walls so thick that nothing reaches you. His deepest teaching was this: the truly powerful person does not destroy their capacity for trust. They refine it. They become precise. They learn to give deeply, but selectively, to love fully, but wisely. Nietzsche called this self-overcoming, not the elimination of feeling, the mastery of where feeling is placed. You do not become less kind, you become more careful with your kindness, and that is the transformation. You are not naive for trusting people. You are someone who has not yet learned to choose who deserves your trust. You are not weak for forgiving. You are generous in a world that has mistaken generosity for permission. You are not behind. You have been investing your heart in people who were not worthy of the investment. And that ends not with bitterness, not with walls, but with clarity.
My friends, this is not the moment where you become someone harder. This is the moment where you become someone wiser. As Nietzsche might have said, your mission is not to absorb every wound that others are unwilling to own. Your mission is to become fully, unapologetically yourself, and that will always disturb those who never dared to try. Remember this, my friends. The respect you allow others to withhold from you is the respect you have already withdrawn from yourself. The dignity threshold is not a set of rules, it is a way of seeing, finally, clearly, without apology. Some things simply deserve your distance, because one day you will look back on this moment and you will understand that the distance you chose was not cruelty, it was the first act of self-respect you had given yourself in a long time. And that is when everything changes. If you want more videos on human psychology, the philosophy of Nietzsche, personal power, and the hidden dynamics that shape every relationship, subscribe to Ancient Soul Philosophy. Because understanding the human soul means taking back control of your life. And if this video made you see yourself or someone in your life differently than before, that's exactly what this channel is built for.